At this moment, I would like to invite Danielle Davenport and Rachel Perez for the Gavilan College Board. You will each have a 30-second opening statement, and we will start with Mrs. Davenport.
Okay, just want to make sure that's on. Hi, I'm Danielle Davenport, and I'm running for Gavilan Board of Trustees. And the reason I'm running is because I've been a lifelong resident of California and Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. And what I recognize is that we have so much opportunity, but we also have so much diversity. And I love this area for both of those reasons, but sometimes the diversity doesn't get to access those opportunities. And I have so much experience in the high-tech field, in addition to teaching community college classes, am I out of time? That I want to bring those together and bridge that divide.
Thank you. Ms. Perez?
Thank you all for waiting to hear us talk. But anyway, I'm Rachel Perez, and I'm also running for the Gavilan Board of Trustees. I'm a 37-year resident of Gilroy. My husband is a Gilroy native and a local dentist, and I've had 3 children, and we raised them all in Gilroy, and they did go to Gavilan College and then transferred on to a 4-year college. In my previous life, I have been a teacher and counselor and also an administrator in K-12, and I also spent the last 16 years at Gavilan College as an administrator. So I feel that I really know the college process. I've been on the operations side.
Thank you. For our first question, it will be addressed to Mrs. Perez first.
Yes.
What plan do you have to address the promises of new and expanded educational facilities and opportunities that were promised, but so far not delivered to San Benito County by the Gavilan College Measure E bond?
Well, I want to start off by saying I'm awfully disappointed in what didn't transpire for San Benito County. I know that I was on the calling in 2006 when we were asked as administrators to call San Benito residents and Santa Clara County residents for the bond. And part of the promise was that you would get an educational center and then eventually a full-service campus. And as I've traveled around and talked to area voters and residents, I'm hearing that there's a real conflict and wanting to know why that didn't happen. All I can say is that we did have a bond oversight committee, and we had 7 sitting trustees with the president of the college that made those particular decisions in terms of the spending of the Measure E money. So as I travel around, I want to acknowledge that I feel your pain. I'm hearing you, and I'm understanding the issue in terms of, the promises that were made to you. And so I think that we have to look at what we can do as a region in terms of addressing those issues.
Thank you. Mrs. Davenport, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What plan do you have to address the promises of new and expanded educational facilities and opportunities that were promised, but so far not delivered to San Benito County by the Gavilan College Measure E bond?
So first, I want to correct what my opponent had to say, because there were promises, but there was no promise to build a facility. There was a promise to extend our footprint into San Benito. Now, I'm new to Gavilan, but I did do my research. $26 million got from the measure. And out of that, a third of that was used to purchase land in San Benito and Hollister. Now, what happened was that there was other things that stalled that progress. And in the strategic plan, it said we will purchase land, and we will purchase land in Coyote Valley. There was no promises, and I don't want to keep facilitating that perception, because all it's going to do is make you more frustrated. What we need to do is come back to reality, look at the strategic plan and what was actually promised, and that was we will establish a foothold and a footprint, not a full-fledged campus. So we need to recognize that first, because if we keep propagating that, then everyone's going to continue to be disappointed, and that's the last thing that we need. So out of that 26 million, we spent 12 million on a campus and on a campus site. We wanted to start building, but we couldn't build because of there's mitigation plans with a fox and some sort of a tiger salamander and other environmental issues. There was also some state approvals that need to happen with certain allocations of students that were being assessed to get matching funds. There was a lot of factors at stake there, and that's why progress couldn't be made. Now, on the flip side of that, we were able to make progress with Coyote Valley because it was a joint venture with about 10 different community colleges. The Habitat Agency expedited some of the mitigation plans, and so we could get that matching funds quickly. So it was a convergence of activities where, unfortunately, San Benito didn't get what they thought they were promised. They did get a third of that money, and we need to make sure that we don't propagate this poor perception of the college and what the trustees have done.
Thank you. Our second question will be first addressed to you, Mrs. Davenport.
Oh, good.
When it comes to students, which of the following is your major emphasis and why? Getting students to a four-year school, serving students who have academic challenges and providing job skills, or providing retraining for the adult population?
So, am I supposed to just pick one? And if I'm supposed to just pick one, I would say four-year degree. And I'm a big proponent of establishing a four-year degree program, and I'm going to talk about why. But there was about 2 years ago, they passed a measure with the community colleges so that 15 community colleges stepped up and said they want to try this. And they're in specific areas, not liberal arts, they're not general, they're specific to a need in an area. And it really works well in areas that where people can't afford to go off to schools and where there's a huge need for things. Let's talk about maybe hydrology, which is wastewater treatment, or maybe enology, or maybe nursing, or ag tech, something very specific to this region. And if we offered one of those, then I think that we could really propel our region and also offer a huge opportunity for some students. However, I do think we need to focus on the other things, which is solving some of the remedial skills issues and programs that some of our students are exiting from our secondary schools that are only 70% of them are ready, 90% are even ready for four-year degrees. So we need to address some of that, and we need to provide some of those remedial programs. We also need to provide the middle career programs, and what I'm talking about is those certification programs. But we also need to be able to expedite those programs. And what I mean there is that some people are taking way too long to get their courses so that they can complete these programs, and it takes up to 5 years for them to graduate or to get a certificate and get out of Gavilan. By that time, we have a 70% failure rate. So I say we hunker down, we figure out where we can focus, and we provide those core classes, get people through the system, get them successfully out, and yeah, so it's those three areas, but primarily I think a four-year degree would be a huge win for Gavilan.
Thank you. Mrs. Perez, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think that as a former teacher, and it's kind of an objective question, I would say all of the above, because a community college is a people's college, and we accept anyone that's 18 years of age or older. So all of these populations are really, really important in terms of who we're serving and who we're getting in terms of presenting to the college. We have recently had a mandate come down from the state, which is the Student Success Act of 2012. And in that particular mandate, it is saying to community colleges that you have to change the way you're doing business. No longer are we so much into access of community colleges, but we want to have students complete, whether they're going to transfer to a four-year college or university, or they're going to do a certificate program, or they're going to do an AS or AA, or whether they're going to take remedial and developmental classes. That's our task. We are being graded in terms of a scorecard, And the 113 community colleges are going to have to then be accountable in terms of the money that they're receiving from the state. In terms of the remedial students, I just really want to say that, and Gavilan just got a new STEM grant, and part of the STEM grant is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But one thing that they're recognizing in this particular STEM grant, and I'm really glad, is that they're acknowledging that we have to accelerate remedial education that we have at the college. For example, 70 to 80% of our students that are presenting to the college need either remedial math, English, or both. So with that given, we need to figure out a way to accelerate, in terms of the remedial and developmental education programs that we have at the college, so these students can then go forward and start to work on credit-bearing classes or classes that move them towards either a certificate, an apprenticeship program, career tech, or whatever it is they say their goals are.
Thank you. Our next question is for Mrs. Perez. Fast forward 5 years, what does the Hollister-Gavilan satellite campus look like, and what educational opportunities will be available to San Benito County residents?
Well, I hope it would be a really vibrant campus that we're able to deliver at least 300 or 400 FTS, which translates into, a couple of $1 million. I think that we need to do some bridge programs with our junior high school students and our high school students so that we develop students that are well prepared and can come to the college, and they've got an ed plan, they've met with a counselor, they've already talked to them about financial aid, they've already talked to them about an orientation and how successful, and these are the qualities that you need to be successful at the campus. So I see the vibrancy of our programs, that we would have also career pathways where students can identify a career and decide that that's what they want to do, and then they would follow through with the help of counseling and guidance in terms of the Student Success Act, so that we know that they're making progress towards completing something. And that's the whole emphasis, I think, right now for the Chancellor's Office in terms of accountability and transparency for Gavilan College, is that we would get students through the program so that they could get on and become gainfully employed, and hopefully they'll be making a living wage. I think that's really the goal of our community college here. And I also feel like we need to collaborate more. We need to do programs that, all students can, get good at and get to where they need to be.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question, Ms. Davenport?
No, I'm okay, but I want to move past from hopefully having our students receive a living wage. And if I talk about my vision, I don't want anyone to think that this is something that could happen and it's been a strategic plan by the board and a promise has been made. But what I would love to see is that we bridge the divide between high-tech, agriculture, bring it together, create some sort of an incubation center where we leverage all of these skills and knowledge that people have in this region, be it working in restaurants, be it working in water conservation, and we bring in some technology so that we can see how technology permeates every single thing we do, be it working at a restaurant in a POS system in the back end or whatever. And then what we can do is we can leapfrog making a minimum or barely able to manage your household expenses to really thriving. I want our students to be able to thrive. I want them to dream big. I want them to see how technology can be used to permeate everything we do. And if that means, collaborating with other community colleges because we don't have the resources or the funds, let's do it. If that means collaborating maybe with unions to provide some middle job training, let's do it. If that means providing mobile campuses, right? Mobile classrooms that reach out into members of the community that just don't have access to other things. So I can't necessarily make a promise but what my vision is is having students being really successful and dreaming big and having a place where they can do that and bringing together all of the different resources we have across this region in order to do that and move way beyond just maintaining a living wage and hopefully getting there. We're going to get there.
Thank you. Our fourth and last question will be for you, Mrs. Davenport. How can the connection between Gavilan College and San Benito County be strengthened? What specific programs or initiatives would you support to ensure that local residents are best served by their community college?
So I understand that community relations need to be mended. I understand that there's a perception, and perception is reality. It really is. Because if you hear something enough, be it from your friends or your family, it becomes something you believe. So we really need to step back and reassess that and make sure that we're very crisp and clear in our communication as trustees and as we represent the school. We can't make promises. We've got to be very, very clear so that we can work together based on realistic goals and objectives. So I'm not going to make any promises about how you've been slighted and you haven't gotten what you've deserved. I think there has been some hostility and some anger, and I get that, and we do need to create some footprint in San Benito to make sure that everyone can be successful. So bridging that is really about bringing the diverse population together and creating a strategic plan with all of those members present and making sure that everyone's at that table to develop that. So with that said, there's not much more I can add. It's a collaborative plan. I'm not making promises, but what I can promise is that I have worked in global environments. I've managed teams of upwards of 500 across the world. I know how to collaborate. I know how different cultures operate, and I know how different people perceive things and have different needs. We all have different backgrounds and where we came from in our struggles. So let's make sure that we address those, we combine them, and we work together as a team and not start pitting each other against each other, because that's just not going to get us anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perez?
Well, as I've traveled around and talked with people here in San Benito County, I'm actually getting an earful in terms of what they would like to get from Gavilan College. One of the things is better outreach programs so that we are able to articulate what kinds of programs we have for students. And then be in our high schools, be in our junior highs, be there so we can do the outreach that we need to do in terms of developing those bridge programs that I talked about earlier. We also actually need to better communicate with our region, and that's something that I think that, you know, in even in big organizations, communication is probably the central most difficult thing to do. So we really need to do better in terms of communicating and articulating what our goals and what our plans are for the college. I also think that you know, we have 65%, Latino population here in San Benito County. So we need to make sure that the outreach to those populations so that they know that there's classes and there's things for them also in terms of our non-credit program that's available for them to learn to speak English, take vocational ESL programs, work on their GED, do citizenship, so that we outreach and we do a better job of articulating what our specific programs are. I also think that we really need to develop some task force here, because what I'm hearing is that people are unhappy in terms of some of the things that the college has not been able to deliver. So I think that if we set up some task force and ask people what are they really thinking about what is Gavilan standing in terms of being the educational institution of higher learning. So we really need to develop some kind of way of finding out what are the real issues here. I think we do definitely have to do a much better job of that. I also think that a regional approach to our problems, you know, we have, or issues, we have, you know, the Coyote Valley, we have the campus in Gilroy, and we have Hollister. So I think that, you know, we're going to have to do a better job of that.
Thank you. And that concludes our questions for both of our candidates. Thank you for being here tonight. And now you will have 2 minutes to give your closing statements. And we will start with Mrs. Perez.
I'd like to talk about my relevant experience because I think that, in terms of the first question, you have 80 acres and you don't even have a sign out there on Fairview Corners that says this is going to be the future site of Gavilan College. But I'd like to talk about some of those opportunities and some of those programs and services that you do have here that do make a difference in people's lives. And I want to talk about my relevant experience. I developed a pregnant and parenting teen program for the Gilroy Unified School District. We had a high teen pregnancy rate, and we needed to do something about that because the girls were dropping out of school. We then did a child development center or child care center so that they can then stay in school once they had their baby. The other thing that I did that I think was really kind of nice was that it was a collaboration between federal government, HUD, and also Gilroy Unified, the city of Gilroy, and we renovated and Gavilan College, and we renovated an old wood shop and turned it into a computer lab with state-of-the-art equipment. Residents in that area were then able to take classes in computers, ESL, just basic adult ed and math and English. So I feel that was a really good program. But I think that the one I really want to emphasize, and I have to rush here, is the ones that I set down here in San Benito County. You have non-credit classes. You have those classes that were established by the college. You have 7 sites across this area, in addition to what's offered at the Briggs Building. People can take classes again at one of the elementary school sites, at the San Benito County Jail, or at the San Benito County Library, and they can take classes to begin their educational continuum in terms of ESL, GED, or citizenship, or math or English basic skills classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Davenport?
So in closing, I want to thank you all for staying and listening to Gavilan Board of Trustees and what we're here for. And I want to remind you, and you know this, that as a trustee, we're really here to represent and to provide fiduciary responsibility and oversight and strategic direction. And I can talk about all of my qualifications. I sit on 3 corporate boards, and I sit on 2 nonprofit boards. One's Home First, which provides homes to 5,000 homeless people, and the other is a habitat agency. So I understand fiduciary responsibility, transparency, oversight, strategic direction, and that's what you need as a trustee. So let me talk about my 3 major priorities, and I'd like to see this trickle down into the establishment. Is establishing some higher standards so that we can speed people through the programs and get them on their way to a 4-year degree or a certification or a job. I've already started talking with some businesses about providing learn and earn opportunities, because that's really what we need. We need people to be learning and going back into the work world and earning at the same time, so they can really apply that. And as soon as they graduate, they've got themselves a job that's good paying. We also need to look at the readiness issues, and that's really a huge gap, and I think we need to partner with some of our local secondary schools to make sure that we help bridge those differences. And then the last thing is really innovation, and I don't want you to think she's just a high-tech lady. Everything we do is about the 21st century and how the labor market pivots on a dime, and that the pace and the change of curriculum is spinning in terms of what we need to provide so our students are relevant. I am the person that gets that. I am the person that can provide that strategic direction for all of your friends and the students around here to compete in this new digital age.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.